When it comes to biohacking, major in the majors, minor in the minors.
Biohacking, where art and science unite to change your life.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I'll stop there.
Two heads are better than one.
You get a coffee enema. You get a coffee enema. Everybody gets a coffee enema. Joy rising.
Welcome to the Epoch Podcast, your weekly dose of mental foreplay. My name's Matt.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
I'm Christina.
And David.
And this week we are talking about biohacking. And just from the little bit of before recording time talk that we had, looks like we've got a lot of different directions that we're going. So just a little context on my hook. I was talking about majoring in the majors, minoring in the minors. Really focusing on the big things that are going to make the biggest amount of difference. And then there's so many different ways you can go, but it's easy to get caught in spending all your time focusing on the little things that are going to yield not too much benefit. Not that they're benefitless, but they might not be as worth as much as maybe getting better sleep, getting more sleep, or eating properly. So I know, Austin, you talked about finding the 5 categories of biohacking.
Yes. Yeah, so defining biohacking. I Googled it, of course, and the dictionary definition came up with, I got to read this, it's hilarious. Biohacking is the activity of exploiting genetic material experimentally without regard to accepted ethical standards or for criminal purposes.
Wow.
I was like,
that's harsh.
That's not what we're doing a podcast about.
Yeah.
Slanted much?
No. Yeah.
Oh.
So that's Google's top result and the dictionary result. You know how it lays those out?
They really focus on the hacking part in a negative way there.
Right.
Hackers.
So no, according to Wikipedia, and I do like this, from what I know of the biohacking community and just kind of the subject itself, there's kind of do-it-yourself biology, where it's a biotechnical social movement in which individuals and small organizations study biology using the same methods as traditional research institutions. So you can get that kind of throws in, I know Tom Bilyeu has a company, that does this research on the bars that they do. I can't think of the name of it. Quest. Thank you. Quest Nutrition. So kind of that do-it-yourself. Not that, he's a larger company, but when they started, it was a small group of dudes doing this testing on different nutrition. Then you get the grinder biohacking, which is people who alter their own bodies by implanting do-it-yourself cybernetic devices, or kind of that cyborg implantation. They have a generic category for self-experimentation in medicine, and that's essentially all other forms of self-experimentation that don't fit into these other 4. The fourth one is nutrigenomics.
Yeah.
Nutrigenomics. Using nutrition to hack and take control of the human biology, which I think I know, Matt, is a lot of what you've and that's becoming more and more kind of what I believe to be the generally accepted definition of biohacking is kind of using nutrition. And then the fifth one they would say is quantified self, measuring various biomarkers and behaviors to try to optimize health, which then where you would get into sleep and other things, again, that you mentioned. And I would personally, and I'm not going to go there, but I would personally add a 6th category, and I would call it energy work. Dealing with beliefs and emotions and stuff. That is also, to me, a very, very real way to hack your biology. Hence, Bruce Lipton, the biology of belief. It's energy work and stuff like that. So I would say there's 6 categories. Wikipedia says there's 5, but in general, the overall idea seems to be, what can you do in life to enhance your physical or your biology, your experience of being, and improve different elements of whatever is or is not important to you. That's pretty generic, but it seems to be a term that is still finding its definition in our world.
Certainly, and I think some of those categories are definitely far more hardcore than I would definitely think about the things that I've dove into. if I could speak today.
Okay.
I can break it down into two words, just human optimization.
Mhm.
I think it doesn't, I mean, yes, there are definitely categories where it gets far more intense, where people are doing some things that should maybe be only done under supervision in hospitals and such, but not necessarily. I mean, people are really fighting for their rights out there.
I'm gonna zing one in here.
Sure.
Because that is that's one of the things that I was very curious about, especially in regards to the experimentation part. I know you said it was optimization, but I feel like, or from what I from what I saw, it wasn't just that. I mean, like there are people that are trying to do like open source cancer treatments or open source AIDS treatments and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess you could go and say, it's a little bit further than optimization, but the whole open source part is they're doing all this testing on their own. Like, the one I watched this very short documentary about this dude, and it was kind of funny because it was a company that was trying, a small company, and this one dude, he looked like a total sleazeball, but he owned most of the company, and he was working with a lab tech guy from the University of Washington, but they were in this small building, and then they ended up fighting with each other.
Mhm.
And so the poor guy that was like the test subject that had AIDS and that had stopped taking his treatment kind of was like SOL. But the quote unquote moral quandary is there. Does this, if somebody is willing to subject themselves to test out this drug, to test out this treatment, where, or to biohack, where does this land in, as far as like the government, the FDA, the whatever, we've heard, I mean, the topic du jour here has been vaccinations. Isn't it basically very similarly around the same vein of things?
I mean, I think it depends, because there's a difference between, a contagious disease and something that's not contagious. And I think that's where the public you'll find the biggest outline. So if I'm walking around with measles and I cough on you, you're going to get sick. But if I'm walking around with cancer, I'm not going to pass my cancer to you. So how I how I treat those things look different, I think, in society. I think for me personally, at the end of the day, it's a choice thing. Like, you have the choice to go to the hospital and seek medical treatment, or you have the choice to go to a shaman in the woods and drink something.
Well, even worse, I actually ran across a guy who was, I don't know if, I forget exactly, I wasn't putting this in my notes, but it's bringing to memory that, I don't know if he was just fined or if he was arrested. I forget exactly, but he was having to go to court, and there was a $10,000 amount there for something. And he was, they were charging him with practicing medicine without a license, but all he did was experiment on himself.
Well, see,
it wasn't even like a huge deal, whatever he was that he did, I don't think. But I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, so, but the thing that happens here is when you mess with medicine, when you mess with the human body, or whatever, if they don't really understand what they're doing, who's to say that they wouldn't be able to make a superbug or accidentally, modify some sort of gene or whatever that would become contagious?
But I mean, how did we get all the medicine we have now? Like, there's people experimenting. So, like, that's not making
Well,
sense.
I mean,
they just call it a drug trial, and even though they still kill people, well.
Well, I mean, don't you remember when we were watching that John Adams thing, and they had the and they all got vaccinated, but the way they did it was, the doctor goes out and there was a poor kid in the cart with smallpox, and he just scraped off one of his boils and, gave it, and he made
Gave
a
it to his own
cut.
kids.
Yeah, well, he made a cut,
Right.
and then he put that stuff from the boil in the cut, and that's how vaccines started. I mean,
Well, I don't know if that's exactly how they started. That was
yeah,
That was the beginning of all vaccine. I mean, it wasn't a documentary on vaccination.
no, but it was a way to show
So is
how
it-
they did back in the day.
Yes.
Giving yourself the virus to a healthy person to have the antibodies to come up with the formula, or
Yeah, I mean that you give a weakened state of the disease
Mhm.
to, or at least that's how they used to be. I think now they're all synthetic, so it's kind of, at least in that sense of the word, is kind of different. The ones that the mainstream ones aren't they synthetic? I thought they were.
I think for the sake of this podcast, we need to kind of rein in what it is that we're defining as biohacking. And because you do, pharmaceuticals, those are the original biohack, right? Vaccines are using a weakened form of a disease to hack your body into being able to fight it off. So biohacking is really, in so many ways,
Very
it's medicine. It's very broad. So I do agree that, it is, people are using biohacking, if you will, to try to cure cancer. They're using biohacking to try to cure, in that case, that gets super broad. So maybe we do focus in on the human optimization part, just because there is a different motivation there. There's a different world there. I think about, and then there's things that kind of cross both sides, such as, the raw milk movement. This idea that I'm going to do this because it's got enzymes for me and it's got different, things for my gut biome, and it's going to make me better. And so are you trying to cure asthma and stuff like that, like some of the stuff that's out there? Or are you trying, so there's even things down the middle that don't really, it's a really broad discussion. I didn't even think about it until we started talking about it.
I totally did not
Right.
realize how broad it was when I first, in my mind, biohacking was connected to Tim Ferriss, because I had known that he did all sorts of random crazy stuff to himself. And that to me was biohacking until I started looking into the definitions like you did. And I was like, oh, wow, pretty much everything's biohacking if you just measure it and see how it goes. So,
Right.
So let's get it on track, and I'm going to ask you, Matt. So what criteria do you use when you decide to try something?
yeah, I'm curious too.
If I'm trying something new, then I need to make sure that I'm not that I don't have a bunch of variables floating around already, because one of the things that when you get into the nutrition side of biohacking is you realize that you can add things together and create stacks. And so, for example, I might have alpha GPC, which is a choline that's able to pass the blood-brain barrier. And then if I combine that with something else, say I combine it with huperzine A, which is good at preserving it and preventing breakdown, then that's the beginning of a stack. And then maybe I can even add a rastam to that. So I add maybe something called Nupept, which is an extremely potent molecule that encourages the uptake of choline into the brain. And it's also neuroprotective. It's a really cool little molecule created in the 90s. And all of a sudden I have this stack of these things that are working together in sync. I can add other rastams to the stack, and people will experiment with them, and it might cause just, on its own, one rastam might alter your mood, whereas in a stack it might not. Or maybe it makes you grumpy, and maybe it makes you have really good memory. It depends on how you use it. So making sure that you're starting with not a ton of variables, I think, is really important. And then I will say, I've been doing this for about 5 years or so, and I'm definitely not hardcore about it. I mean, maybe there might be some disagreement there in the sense that I will make capsules when I'm
during Bible study in the basement.
Yeah, right. Or now that it's not, now that it's online, I'll just do it right in front of the computer. It's super nice. I don't think I could get away with doing that in a pew.
Given that pretty much everything you used was white powder, I'm just gonna,
right. But I don't know. That's where I start, making sure that I'm not combining more things than I think I am. And then you got to give yourself a long enough trial. Like some things depend on like how long has it had to build up in your system, or just does your body develop a tolerance? It depends on what you're doing. So,
what's your primary goal?
For me, it's definitely increased performance. So to take
of what? Your mind, your body, your sex drive, your creativity. I like that, Jen. Awesome right there.
I mean, beyond taking zinc, I don't think I've done anything to maybe enhance my sex drive. But
I was saying yes to all of it.
Okay.
Well, you said it quite at a
you got pretty excited.
Yes.
Get better at sex.
Wait, that's different.
So going back a long ways on this one, back to kind of the beginning of my journey for it, just a quick overview. I'd watched the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper, but it's like a 2011 movie. I had heard Joe Rogan talk about a company that he promotes on it, and their supplement Alpha Brain. And I'd heard it long enough and been encouraged just to go for it at some point. I don't know what the jumping off point was, but I bought a bottle of Alpha Brain, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The only downside is that it was $70 and it wasn't a ton in the way of doses there. I was also interested in lucid dreaming at the time, and I would time the dosage so that it would improve lucid dreaming, and it did. It was super cool. However, where my real journey into biohacking began is when I was like, all right, I can't afford this. Like, we were starting Epic Nation Ministries at the time, so I was basically not bringing in any income. And so I was looking at the active ingredients, and I began diving into the internet and trying to find out how I could replicate, find the active ingredients that were providing the effects that I liked and really double down on those. And not only was I able to break those down, but then I was able to find ways to buy bulk powders of those. And so that's why you guys would see me maybe making capsules, because it's really much less expensive. Like you can start adding the price per pill up if you really get into biohacking. And you're taking this pill, it's 30 cents a day. This one you take 2, but it's 15 cents a piece. This one's $1, whatever. Like, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm taking like $6 in pills a day. That's not really sustainable for $180 a month on no income. Not super sustainable. Like a friend of ours was selling plasma to like invest in his biohacking. You remember Steve?
Oh yeah.
And so that was where I really got into it. That's where I found Nupept. Nupept was like, that blew my mind. That was one that it just takes such a small amount, but you add it to the little things that are in Alpha Brain, and
I love when you mention all of these different random supplements or whatever it is, and I have to go looking them up to below in the show notes, and I'm like, what? And I have to try figuring out different ways to spell it.
Sure. So I'll start off by saying yes. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a doctor.
Right.
I don't think any of us are. Nupept is.
Last I checked.
Didn't get that honorary doctorate in the mail yet.
Nope.
Nupept is spelled NOOPEPT, and yeah. And when combined with choline and huperzine A, like, it really allows me to recall information at a much faster pace, allows me to focus at a higher level. My only, like, probably my biggest struggle when I'm using these stacks is to not develop the mentality that says, I need this, I am not enough without this. That's the biggest thing here. When I started working on my private pilot's license, I would find that when I took this stuff, it really helped me in the air with the multitasking. I was able to recall, all the steps that I needed to do, even though you're supposed to work with a checklist, and just work your way down the checklist. Oftentimes I would like just forget about my checklist altogether and just try to work through the steps like an idiot and kind of get a little lost. And so when I would, be, I guess, dosed up for the day, it was definitely easier to go through the steps and learn that whole process. So that's definitely a place where I found it. Beyond that, I think chemically, I think anybody who's like a serious athlete does a bit of biohacking in the sense maybe they dive into creatine, maybe they dive into acetyl L-carnitine, which is a really cool supplement. I was just writing about it today. I found it, unfortunately, when I was a poor private first class in the Marine Corps, and it was like 30 pills for $35. But I remember the first time I took that stuff, I went out for a soccer game. I was playing on base, and I was like, I can see better right now. Like my vision was acutely better, and I felt like I was just a little more nimble. Now, how much of this is psychosomatic? I don't know. How much of it's placebo? I don't know. I just knew that particular supplement had a really high grade for being like actually useful. Whereas like so many things are promoted, very few of them are actually useful. Whereas acetyl L-carnitine today, or Alcar, ALCAR, today you can buy it incredibly cheap, especially if you're willing to put it in capsules yourself. So
I'm curious, do you ever do any blood testing or anything when you're doing your experiments, or do you just go based off of how you feel? Or
I am just taking notes on how I feel.
Okay.
So I've never made myself bleed to throw it under a microscope or throw it into a kit to test it or anything.
Yeah.
How self-aware do you need to be?
I think self-awareness is, really important. Maybe the thing that came to mind when you said that, though, is like discipline. You need to be disciplined about it, and you can't be the person who's going to be getting carried like with an addictive personality. You can't be the person who's just going to say, "Oh, this works, so I'm going to take more of it. Oh, this works, so I'm going to take more of it."
Like more dosage.
Yeah. One of a great nootropic is caffeine, and it's something that all of us are very familiar with. But we all know if you take too much caffeine, it goes beyond being useful and becomes a pain in the ass. You feel jittery. You feel maybe sick to your stomach. You give it to kids, they go nuts. Get all hopped up on Mountain Dew and throw Grandpa's medals off a bridge, whatever.
Is that a thing you know about?
Is this a story?
It's Ricky Bobby's kids did that one.
Nice.
Oh, that's right.
Oh.
But nootropics, define that. Is it what, mental?
A brain supplement, I guess.
Yeah, it's for cognitive function.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So do you have like I have a crap ton of work to do and I'm going to take this to help me get through it. I watched a documentary on the BBC documentary, about this one, and let me see what it is. Crap.
Modafinil or
yeah, that one.
Right on. So modafinil is definitely like a hardcore one that a lot of people will recognize. It's prescribed.
Oh, really?
People will go out of their way to acquire it, and so some people will get in trouble with it. Modafinil is one of those that like it doesn't have a long track record, but it works. I don't think there's any way of getting around saying it works. It's just like I think doctors might use it for shift work. It helps people stay alert and ready to engage. But and this might be unfair to modafinil, but when I think about that, it just makes me think about like Adderall and Ritalin, just things that people will use that are prescribed that are, what is it? I think Adderall. How close is it to meth? Or I don't know. Maybe
But I looked it up on Amazon, and there were a bunch of supplements that had modafinil in them, or I don't even. Yeah.
I might be out of date. Maybe it's look it up. Or
Looking that up.
Or maybe that's just allowed in really tiny small doses. And
Yeah,
it's not
maybe
really
it's microdosing or something like that.
Okay, microdosing. Explain that, David.
No. Matt. I mean, isn't it like
sounds
what?
like not that hard to
Just giving yourself tiny bits of whatever.
well, I mean, the microdosing that I'm familiar with would be like LSD.
Yeah.
And so people will take like 100th of the dose of LSD. So the idea is not to be, tripping out of your mind, but to be like a fraction altered, and altered kind of shows up as just being more creative, more, ready to do something different. So
That's a big deal in Silicon Valley.
Yep.
It's known that Silicon Valley. So if you're not a programmer, you don't know a lot about computers, then you may not realize, how mental obviously programming is. It is a combination of math, art, and obviously logic. Like programming requires a heaping ton of mental acuity. And so programmers have been trying to biohack their ability to program tighter programs, cleaner programs, faster programs, better code. It's no different than an author. What's the difference between your second grade, or I don't know, fifth grade child and freaking Ernest Hemingway? Like there's a difference in the quality of authorship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so programming, people kind of think it's very just like, well, math is math. Well, yeah, but programming is more than that. There is a lot of that personality, of the intelligence of the individual that goes into it. And so microdosing LSD, I know, is one of the things that is popular in Silicon Valley. Another thing is I'm actually very familiar with something called Ballmer's Peak, which I can't remember the first guy's name, but he was one of the main programmers for Apple years ago. And he would, on weekends, while he would work, he would drink. And he noticed that he would hit this point with his drinking, that his code would just get insanely good and clear and quick and fast. And he started to track it. And he started to realize there was this point that he knew how many ounces he needed, and he knew when to stop and when to stay at that peak point where he could code for hours and like crush it. And things he couldn't figure out all week, he'd figure out in 30 minutes. Things he didn't know how to do, he would figure it out. And he realized that, so even alcohol kind of got him to a certain measure of lucidness, to where his code just got super clear and super pristine. And then, of course, one more drink and boom, it would just drop through the floor. So, biohacking in the computer or in the programming industry there's multiple ways, and microdosing, Ballmer's Peak, and other things. It's a big deal in that industry.
Well, sure. Modafinil, like David was talking about, like that's definitely used. I know I think there's a video about a guy that's going through a boot camp, a programming boot camp, and he's like, I really enjoyed it, but to keep up with everybody, like I felt like I had to work, twice as hard and twice as long. So I was looking for an edge. Modafinil provided the edge that allowed me to stay up and just get these lines of code out. Because not only are you trying to do all this stuff, but you're trying to get volume of it done too.
Yep.
So being able to go for long periods of time is definitely a perk. Something I found that was really helpful for when I was going through school, being able to jam through online lectures was not something that you take in, but something that you listen to, and it was binaural beats. And the really cool thing was I was able to listen to I had this macroeconomics class, or no, environmental economics class. I don't know which one it was. That was broken up into like 4 quarters, and I was able to, so the whole semester was broken up into 4 quarters. I was able to listen to basically half the semester in one session, because I put the speed on double speed, and I listened to binaural beats at the same time. The binaural beats helped me focus and elevated my mood, and I was able to jam through that whole thing and just take 2 tests, like two mini exams in the same evening. It was It was wild.
Yeah, I do have Brain FM, and
Yeah, that's
the
cool.
work one, when I have stuff to do and like really need to concentrate and stuff, it's almost weird though. Like it's almost weird because when you're done, you almost feel like you were like super hopped up on caffeine or something.
Sure.
Just like you're almost jittery, and you were just listening to things. And it says it lasts like, I don't know, hours after you have a session with it, you know.
It's interesting you say that. Yeah, I haven't paid attention to how long they last. The thing I've paid attention to is when they start. Like I can almost feel it when it kicks in.
How does binaural beats work?
So you need stereo headphones because you're getting 2 different frequencies, one through each ear, and then your brain's going to modulate a third frequency, and that is going to put you either in, like if you wanted to focus, you know, we can have some alpha brain waves coming through. Cool, can do that. You want theta waves? Cool, we can do that. You want delta waves for deep sleep and dreams? Cool, we can do that. So people use theta for like meditation, maybe falling asleep, and then I think I just said the other 2. So I don't know if anybody ever works to get beta waves, but
I will say, like, my hook at the beginning was there's an art and science to biohacking, and I know one time you had me listen to the beats, and I was like, I can't listen to this. This is annoying the heck out of me. All I hear is this one really annoying beat. And so what works for one person doesn't work for all. And maybe it was just that sequence of things or whatever that I was listening to. But so if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm going to try this and I want to try that, and you're not getting the same results, it's because it's an art form as well as a science, and finding what works for you personally, because we all bring different things to the table. And
that's so true.
That there are some on Brain FM, some styles of music that are annoying as heck.
God, I tried so hard.
Like study kind, and they're like, oh my word, this is so boring sounding or whatever. And I like to listen to music when I work, and sometimes I can get into a groove with that. But like, so there's certain ones that I like to listen to with that.
Right on.
Certain styles.
Just to double down on what Jen was saying, that individual experimentation is so required. Even going back to the very beginning when we were talking about things that you're stacking, that you're taking in, like somebody's stack might work perfectly for them, and then you go ahead and try that same stack, and it makes you feel horrible, and your brain feels foggy, and you're just regretting it all day. So it definitely depends on the individual and how you're wired and your receptors, how they're taking things up, and how might come down to your gut biome, like Austin mentioned earlier. Like there's so many individual factors that you have to take in.
It's the same with clinical trials and drugs. Side effects may include, like it is not like organic things are not to be treated like mechanic things.
Sure. Right.
If the water, the fuel pump on your vehicle goes out, you just go find another fuel pump and put it back in. There's a reason that if you need a heart transplant, you need people with the right blood type. You need people, that the organic biology of each individual person is customized, and organic systems, cannot just copy paste. Oh, this worked for you, so it will work for me. By all means.
So, question: has any of you guys tried muscle testing to see what might work before having to try it, like ingest it? No.
I think for me, and what I use the most is just that feeling, that feeling or that thought is a stronger communicator for me than muscle testing. I still muscle test and stuff, but it's my go-to is like, I need to do this. And if I think the next day I still need to do this, and then a week from now I still need to do this, and 3 weeks from now I haven't done it yet, but I need to do it. Like that's my communicator as what to try and what not to try. Or even kind of what Austin was talking about earlier, like knowing yourself, like I'm having these symptoms and I want to resolve them, but I don't want to go to the doctor to take some kind of dosage of whatever. I'm going to do an organic thing, and if I take magnesium, it's going to help me sleep better, and I'm going to function better. I'm going to have less depression and my menstrual cycle is going to be awesome. Like those are the things I'm looking for to enhance my biology. So,
yeah, I've never done muscle testing for that purpose, but I think I've never, or I haven't given muscle testing its due in recent years. Like it's way more powerful than I give it credit for. Is there any biohacking that you guys have done? Like, is there any one thing that you're like, oh, this is it? Like this, everybody has to try this thing.
I know for me, I'll keep it because oh my gosh, we should do an episode on energy work, right, as a whole, because we all are familiar with it in different forms. Write it down. It's an idea.
Okay.
But by and large, yeah. For me, as a biohacking tool, using energy work and specifically Psyche, emotion code, body code, there's different modalities that if you're not familiar with the fact that your life is a perfect reflection of your beliefs and your emotions, just check out the biology of belief. There's another one. There's more and more, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, the Intention Experiment by, I can't remember her name. You got Dr. Carolyn Leaf, who talks about your beliefs and your brain, everything like that. Like there's more and more and more proof coming out that what you believe and the emotions you carry are highly influential on your biological reality. And we all know it on a very simple level. Stress, right? Emotional stress. Some people deal with emotional stress and it can help them mature, and it can, improve their physical appearance by, I'm stressed out, so I'm going to go run, and I'm going to, all of a sudden, like how you deal with stress, you can actually hack your body, using it in emotional energy, or vice versa. You can hack your body in the negative. You go smoke and drink and get high all the time because you're stressed and you don't know how to deal with it, and it's still hacking your body. So, in many ways, you want to get to the root of some of this stuff, deal with the energy, your beliefs, your emotions. And then on top of that, we all, one of my favorite examples of the fact that you're not just a physical body. You are a spirit that houses a soul and a body. And one of the things we're all kind of familiar with, if you've ever been standing at a concert or in a restaurant or something, and you feel somebody looking at you, and then you turn over and you see, oh, yep, they certainly were looking at you. Your body is not just the physical. Your existence is bigger than your physical body. And therefore, again, if you want to hack your body, biohack, then address the energetic realities. You have a personal bubble. You ever had that weird, creepy dude stand next to you in the grocery line? And you're like, dude, you're in my space. Like, get out of my space. What are you talking about? It's not your space. They're not touching your body. But yet they're inside of your energetic existence. That, again, if you want to, that is my go-to, is I believe, because everything is energy, even at its core, all of these nootropics you're talking about, all of these supplements, they're still energetic, right? They carry a frequency into our bodies, and they still get broken down into something energetic. And we know that quantum physics tells us. So for me, the ultimate biohack is energy work. And I do, I saw you write it down, Christina. I do think we should do an episode on energy work. I think it'd be great. But that is my go-to, specifically Psyche and emotion code. And I've developed a little bit more comprehensive system for myself called Belief IQ. I even have a website, beliefiq.com. Still being built for the most part, but it looks great. And it's a modality that I am kind of designing as the ultimate biohack, in my humble opinion. But again, that's how biohacking is almost anything at this point. So, but that's my and that's what my article's on too, by the way. So check it out.
Well, it's kind of funny to think about it in that way, because energy work could be very expensive, but if you think about not having to take all these supplements forever, Like,
Mm-hmm.
it is kind of, I don't know, a hack of biohacking, maybe.
Biohack hack. The thing that was kind of hitting me while you were talking, Austin, was like, the cementing in my mind how much of an art it is, because I was thinking while you were talking, I was like, well, I bet you could probably biohack or chemistry biohack in order to improve your energy.
Uh-huh.
Because I mean, a lot of the energy work is how you view yourself. If you have I think you were saying something about magnesium that makes you less depressed or whatever, or that can have that effect. Well, if you take magnesium and you have a more positive outlook on yourself, on life, then you automatically raise your energy level.
Sure.
So I mean, it is an art. You could do energy work and take some of this stuff to enhance things, and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. And I was like, man, hey, it is an art. You kind of have to have some sort of ability or way of testing things out and seeing what works best for you, and how to enhance your results and stuff like that. So
I
it's
think
kind of an interesting thought there.
there is a modality out there that's called body code
Mm-hmm.
that does combine these two. It combines energy work and
Right.
biohacking. So it actually leads you to like, hey, you need this supplement and you need to address this belief. You need to release this trapped emotion and you need to start eating bananas. Like it will actually, you need to actually start doing this stretch, or you need to go over it. Like it takes, it's body code. I've really, really want to get certified in it. It's just expensive and I haven't had the money, but, yeah, there is a really cool. I've seen it do amazing things. I have a friend who couldn't get pregnant for years and years and years. Went and did one session of body code. That thing led to a Mayan massage therapy, and now they have 3 children. Like within a month, she was pregnant, stayed pregnant, and could not be pregnant for like 12 years. And body code fixed that. Like. No, the body code said, now go over here and get this Vigo Mayan massage, and did something with her, like her uterus was off kilter, and so there was a massage therapy thing. So the energy work led to, actual physical therapy, and I think there was also a couple of supplements she needed to take. So it is all intertwined, and you're right, it's totally an art, and it is totally and there's an awareness requirement.
Mm-hmm.
That I think cannot be overstated. That's why I asked earlier, Matt, like how aware do you have to be? Because a lot of people are like, well, I've just been taking these pills the doctor told me to. Really? How are you doing with that? Like, well, I don't know. I guess I still feel shitty and nothing's really changed, but it cost me $300 a month.
My pee turned purple.
Yeah. And people just kind of go through because somebody in a white lab coat told you to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is the new like that's the new Buddha, right?
Yeah.
Well, the doctor told me to do it, so it's the new religion. It's the new, that's how I get to heaven.
I think it's more of the old, because I really feel like as biohacking comes more into the crease, we're moving out of that kind of age and moving into something where we're taking ownership of it, and we're crossing the different fields of thought and energies and really breaking ground.
True. Absolutely. Yeah. It's the old Buddha that many of the existing generations still view as kind of the last authority, the doctor said.
Definitely.
But there's more and more people absolutely crossing these lines and taking responsibility for their own life, which is so good. Thank you, Internet.
Right.
Well, it's kind of, it's fascinating and a little irritating also, though, what we're talking about in the sense that there are people that do take lab coats as deities,
Mm-hmm.
and because I was thinking, man, there's a lot of let's just prescribe this drug, or let's do this, and then people are like, okay, and they just take the drug without understanding side effects and whatever, and without thinking that there might be something better out there for things, Yeah, sorry.
Well, then I'm sure there.
I can talk about that a lot, mainly because of some mentalities that people I know have, and so. But yeah, it's probably not a rabbit trail we want to go on this podcast.
Like I know I was essentially listening to a guy in a white coat, but I was reading a book. It was Dr. Michael Colgan. He's a Canadian doctor. I think he is. Primarily now, I think he focuses on anti-aging, and he looks amazing for his age. Back in the day, he worked with Olympic athletes on performance, and I was interested in increasing my athletic performance, and I thought that, I thought I was not enough, and so I was looking to make sure that I was maximizing every part of me, to make sure I wasn't deficient in things. And it was funny, like I bought his book, Sports Nutrition Guide, and I think it was around the turn of the millennium. And if you had gone into my barracks room when I was in the Marine Corps, I literally had a tackle box that I filled with pills. And then, but it was like, it had 3 rows, so I knew when to take. I would fill it up, so like morning, lunch, evening, and then 7 days a week. And it was just, I was just trying to take everything, because it was built out of this mentality that I am not enough. But if I do this, then I might be enough. But I don't want to get too far into that. I know we're going around the circle there. I'm talking about things that were really working for us. The one thing maybe hadn't got to yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of briefly talked about magnesium, and that's really helped me a lot with my sleep patterns. Sometimes I have a little bit of insomnia patterns, and so that's helped me curve that, as well as some minor depression, as well as a menstrual cycle. So if that's something that interests you, I definitely recommend trying some magnesium out. And then the other thing that I've worked on, and this is, I think, where the art form comes in, where I actually had my blood work taken, and it turned out my liver was not fully functioning properly. And I was just told by the doctors to, hey, your numbers are kind of on the radar to be checking things out, but, we'll come back in a couple months and try it out. And so I did a little Googling, found out that milk thistle is a really natural herb, a good herb to address your liver. And so I did that, and I came back and did my bloods, and that was actually something that my blood work did come out normal. So that, I think for me, that was kind of a really good indicator of, I had the blood work drawn before and after, and seeing the big increase on that. So those were the 2 things that I kind of am working on really right now.
Right on. So, the magnesium kind of addresses a deficiency, and I think, I don't know where everybody stands on where nutrition, how it's faring in the modern agricultural system. Some people might say that
what nutrition?
Just for example, the vitamins and minerals might not be as up to snuff as they once were.
Right.
When we're taking soil and just making it pump out.
Crop
fruits,
crop
after crop, not giving it rest, but we're throwing in fertilizer so it's still growing. I don't know, but some people might say that because of that, food's not as nutritionally dense as it once was. And so naturally, even without that, people are often on the border of having enough magnesium as it is. And so one of the things that we do supplement regularly here in the household with is magnesium. So in the form of magnesium lysate or magnesium glycinate, chelated form, or even magnesium chloride in the form of a spray. Like those are, before bed, those are great options. The only warning I would put on that oil
is that it does cause skin irritation.
Well, for some.
So if you're me or our children, it feels like your skin is like tickly, like it's burning, not burning, but it's not a pleasant. You want to kind of rub it off and not do that again. So
I think it's worth mentioning too that not all supplements are created equal.
Oh, certainly.
OMG. Like my wife is huge into some of the certain supplements. Magnesium glycinate is one of them. She's also in like turmeric with the active ingredient, which is something I can't remember right now. And like, I take turmeric for inflammation. Well, if it doesn't have the right active ingredients, or if it's not a quality turmeric, you're just literally throwing money down the drain. Like, I think, was it like you could take all the vitamin D in the world, but if you don't get sunlight, it's not going to be activated, right? Stuff like that. So knowing, just taking something because you have a shortage doesn't mean you're getting it.
Right.
Sure.
Or because you're taking the right one, if you're taking a crappy ingredient or a cheap off-store brand, there's a reason they're cheap.
Mm.
Well,
and I think the one thing that because we used to get magnesium and zinc all together, and
Sure.
those two, when you put them together, they actually fight against absorption for your body. So
they compete for
they
absorption.
compete. Sorry. So there's that piece. But then if you're taking calcium as well as magnesium at the same time or within 30 minutes, that's also a competing factor. So if I'm drinking a glass of milk with my magnesium, then
right.
Sure.
And the active ingredient in turmeric is curcumin. I just remembered it.
nice.
And that's one of the reasons I brought up the form of magnesium, because
Right.
there's a lot of different forms, and they all have varying degrees of usefulness. But if you want bioavailability, if you want ease of uptake, you need to make sure you're getting the right kinds in. I think another great example is vitamin E. A lot of the vitamin E that people will get in a multivitamin is synthetic vitamin E, and it's not like it has a twist that is going to make it. That's like the opposite way of the twist that your body's going to have a receptor for. And so yes, it's technically vitamin E, but it's not going to be absorbed. It can't. So,
Why do you think they do that? Is that just like a ploy to get more money, or honestly, the manufacturers don't understand how it works, or
Why haven't they been sued?
I think
there's no oversight.
and I think one answer is a lot of science is still mechanic.
Sure.
Oh, you need vitamin E? Here's some vitamin E.
Right.
Yeah. This kind's expensive to make, but this time this is synthetic and cheap, so we'll get this in there. Well,
Yeah, I mean, for being an industry that's framed or like literally is all about biology and organic systems, the allopathic method largely put a mechanic system inside of that world. And I think you still get a lot of supplements and a lot of companies that are like, oh, vitamin E is vitamin E is vitamin E. My Petri dish says it's vitamin E. So it must be vitamin E. Really? And so I think they're starting to realize, this is significantly more organic and complicated than we realized.
I think, and the funny thing here is there is still so much to learn about the human body.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And what people need to understand is that doctors say for example, when we had our first daughter, don't give him peanut butter. It'll make him allergic to it. With the last one that we had last year, the doctor was like, oh yeah, you can give him whatever you want to give him. Yeah, peanut butter. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting seeing the difference.
Really?
Not even just that, but
what's the age difference between your oldest?
the kid has
In
peanut
age.
butter and she's gonna, go into anaphylactic shock.
Well,
But 8 years later, that's fine, no problem. Yeah, give him whatever you want to give him. It's fine.
I just watched a documentary on that.
Hmm.
And they're realizing that it's dosing. It's microdosing.
Yeah.
And it's essentially like a vaccine. And they realized they were telling all the parents not to give their kids peanut butter. And the peanut allergy went through the roof because kids weren't getting that part of their microbiome able to deal with it. And so now they do tell you, give them peanut butter. And that's how they're curing it too, is they're doing dosing of peanuts or dosing of, shellfish or whatever.
The crazy thing here is that we have people that we're supposed to be trusting with our lives that are learning things that are extremely contradictory to each other within a span of 10 years.
The problem is I don't mind that, but it's how they present themselves as being the final authority.
That's exactly where I'm getting to. That, your doctor is like, you can't do this or take this. And they're prescribing antibiotics for everything. Oh, you have a sore throat? Antibiotics. Really?
oh, well, we actually watched a video on why they're doing that, because and
Big
I forgot,
pharma.
like the fancy doctor.
Yeah, when people go into a doctor's office, they expect to get treated, and so even if it's not, even if it's not something that's going to be treated by antibiotics, but they're like, hey, I need antibiotics. All right, here you go.
But see, and
Well,
the thing is, like, all these antibiotics are getting into our water sources, and we're essentially contributing to all these superbugs, because as we take antibiotics, as these bugs take antibiotics and become immune to them, then they can live longer, and then we have to figure out, okay, well, we need stronger antibiotics. It's a vicious cycle there, and so yeah, I don't know.
Dude, there are so many things that I want to talk about right now.
What is it about biohacking?
It is. I mean, just on the sore throat thing, like this one small massage technique just has changed my life in the last few years. And it was lymph node massage. There's plenty of videos on the internet, but like I got to a point with the work that I was doing where I was doing a lot of high altitude depressurized flight, so my body was swelling a lot, unswelling. My sinuses were swelling, unswelling, and I was getting just constant sinus infections like every other month, it seemed like. It was a horrible way to live. I ended up quitting that job.
Not because of that.
Right, but it was definitely not going to keep me around there like that. And just the act of working through, understanding that the lymph node system's there to carry away waste products, and that you can kind of help clear traffic that might get blocked up every once in a while. Whenever I feel like I might have a sore throat coming on now, I just I turn to lymph node massage, and nothing ever comes of it. Like, I end up feeling fine. Like, it was a fun teaching point with our daughter just a month ago or so, because she was fighting it. She said it was boring. I was like, hey man, like, an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. And
sunk in deep.
Well, I think so bottom line is that she didn't do it, and then she ended up doing it a whole lot more over the coming month just to kind of get back on track.
Right.
Like, it was silly.
Well, I think go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, are you saying you do it randomly, periodically, not just when you're feeling something?
No, so I mean, it's a preventative. So if I sneeze, maybe more often than I think I should, what's the amount of sneezing? Be like, yeah, my body's trying to tell me something. So I'm just gonna go ahead and help make sure things are moving properly. Because when things, just like water, if it gets stagnant, that's when things begin to grow and whatnot. Well, if your lymph fluid gets stagnant, that's when things are gonna start getting nasty. So help it move and clear out. And then, like I said, if I ever like a sore throat, I'll go ahead and run through it. It takes, I can usually do it, and I can do a small amount of it in a minute. I can do a heavy amount in 5 minutes. If I'm just watching a show, hey, I've got all the time in the world to sit there and just love my face and my neck area,
Wow.
Yeah, you know, again, awareness.
Sure.
Do you go, oh, if I sneeze more than I think I should, what? Like how many? I've never paid attention to that. I'm a pretty aware individual, but mostly on a spiritual level. On a physical level, I mean, we already do the episode on like intentional presence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm paying more attention to my physical than I ever have in my life, and there's a whole different type of awareness that, like, I can see why people being as aware as they are super fit and super this and super that. I think it's a very rare individual that can do that both physically and spiritually, but I want to be one of those. But awareness is stinking key, man. It is. To be aware of your body speaking to you in all those different ways, that's a big key.
Right.
So, something that you said made me think of this word that I learned when I was doing some of the research. It's called orthorexia, which is an obsessive focus on quote-unquote healthy eating, an exaggerated fear of disease, a sense of personal impurity, anxiety, and shame if an individual violates self-imposed dietary rules, and they increase dietary restrictions over time. And it was in information about nutrigenomics. Is that what it was? Yeah, nutrigenetics and nutrigenomics, whatever that word was that you said at the beginning. I apparently didn't write that one down. But just that's something that is, I guess, easy to go from being self-aware and going kind of overboard and
Right.
being really focused on it. And that's, anyway, so they came up with the word orthorexia for that, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Almost like they could do some energy work around their beliefs.
Yeah,
To
probably.
hack the hack. Yeah.
Right on. I mean, man, there is so much to talk about here. Like, we haven't even talked about heat or cold at all. I mean, I think
Wim Hof.
Right, Wim Hof has really kind of nailed down the market right now on cold exposure. If you're not familiar with Wim, W-I-M, Hof, H-O-F, and his method, the Wim Hof method. My goodness, look into that. I mean, just the idea of taking a cold shower, which is not unique to Wim Hof. Like, so many people have advocated taking cold showers. And a lot of people are like, well, I like a nice warm shower in the morning or in the evening, whatever it is. It's relaxing, and I totally understand that. However, just even if you're taking a portion of that shower and making it cold, the health benefits are there. They are tangible. They are documented. It is so good for you. And I mean, even just to wake up in the morning, it'll really get you going.
Now, a question here in regards to that: does the water have to be like? How cold does the water have to be? Does it matter lower than body temperature, or freezing, or what?
I mean, so you're looking for the colder the better. Typically, I mean, I know people have. When I was in the Wim Hof group on Facebook, before I got kicked.
You got kicked out of
I got kicked off. I argued with them on it.
You're such a troll.
I argued with them on it. I was like, just kick me out. I don't even care. So kick me out.
Wow, sassy Matt.
Right?
Yes.
Anyways, it was fun to see some of the things that people would do in places where it was very hard to get cold water. So people that were in Central America were like taking like a strainer that you'd run your food through, and they would fill it with ice and then hang it over their shower head to get cold water.
Oh, great. Now David has that idea in his head. He takes cold showers a lot, but he was saying today he doesn't think they're cold enough.
I don't shower with warm water anymore. And the only thing is, like, here, when it was winter, it was the water was colder.
Sure.
But now it's just kind of like, great.
Yeah. As it moves into summer, man, I've become so adjusted to this cold water.
Yeah.
Awesome cold water showering.
I don't know. It definitely is. I mean, depending where you are in the world, more fun, I think, to challenge yourself with the colder water. Like, I know, I did I celebrated the Marine Corps birthday in the Columbia River, which that was November. Went for it was like a 3-mile run in the water. It was intense, but it was fun. My feet got cold. It was funny. I realized I was like, man, what did my feet hurt so bad afterwards? I was like, you just ran 3 miles barefoot, dude. Like, but I don't know. So there's cold, which is super good for you, but then there's heat too. I mean, like, when we moved here, like one of the things that I was like, we got to get one of these. I've been wanting one of these forever. And we bought a sauna, an infrared sauna, and it was an amazing purchase. I love it. Still use it. Probably get it going tonight. Just whereas cold exposure will help you build up brown adipose tissue, which is good for your body being able to use fat and convert it into heat. And saunas will help you produce heat shock proteins, and they have their own benefits. And I mean, just the idea of sitting in there, I can multitask so much in that sauna. I can have what I call mystic Matt time, where I'm just creating my future.
Whoa! Keep it G.
Keep it G. No, I'm like, I'm imagining the life that I want to have, and just going into the details. What does my life look like? What does it feel like when I have that life? Or I can be listening to YouTube videos and reading stuff, prepping for our next conversation on here, whatever it is. I mean, I often stretch in there, make sure I work on my posture in there. You can do a lot in a heated box for an hour. So
an hour. Oh my. Well,
I mean, it depends. I mean, I try to spend at least 40 minutes in there, but sometimes, I'm feeling really good and I'll go for an hour and 20. Sometimes just, I don't know. I usually go for less than 40, but
no more.
I think there's like a threshold of at least like 20 minutes that you want to spend in one, but
you don't really start sweating until after 20 minutes.
Well, the interesting thing with infrared ones is that you're not necessarily like, it's not like a traditional sauna where you're waiting for the heat to cause you to sweat. The infrared heaters are impacting you differently. They're penetrating in a different way. So you're not necessarily waiting for the sweat.
Okay.
It's another signal, but it's not necessarily the end goal.
There's just so many things.
There are, and it's interesting too, because I can see, oftentimes I'll bring in some salt water to drink while I'm in there. And I can tell if I go back-to-back nights, I can tell like if I went too long the previous night because my stamina to stay in there is just gone. But if I make sure, if I have plenty of
electrolytes,
of good electrolytes in me, yeah, I'm ready to rock for a long time.
Huh.
But that costs, the sauna costs money. But there's lots of stuff that doesn't cost money that you can hack. Like for example, I think one of my favorites right now is neurobics, and the idea of neurobics, like jazzercise, for your body, it's like aerobics for your mind. So this is something you can have your kids do tonight. You can do it tonight. So maybe I usually brush my teeth with my right hand. Well, today I'm going to do it with my left hand and standing on one foot. That's an example of just causing your brain to run through reps that it wouldn't normally get and stretch in a different way. You can do that. You can walk through your house blindfolded. You can just engage your imagination. There's so many ways to.
Well, I'm also wondering, does crossing the midline activities would probably do the same effect?
What does that mean, crossing the midline?
So when your two brain hemispheres are together, as we live life and whatnot, they start to separate. And so when you cross the midline is when you're crossing the center of your brain. So it's simple, like taking your thumb and making a figure 8 and holding it and watching it with your eyes, that connects your two brain hemispheres and connects them back together. So is that the same thing, or is that kind of different?
It's different, but it's a good thing to do. I mean, that's demonstrably been shown to help kids, right? Like they make a point.
Yes, and that is a big age development thing with the younger kiddos. That's why crawling is so important, as well as walking in a straight line forwards and backwards and whatnot, and skipping, because you're crossing those the hemispheres of communication. So your left side talks to your right side, and your right side talks to your left side.
Cool.
So you're saying, Jen, that those hemispheres separate as you get older, and that creates all sorts of issues with.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that a little bit in Psych, but there's also like the physical pieces of that, where I think at one point there was a surgeon who's like, I'm gonna cut the fleshy part in between the two hemispheres in this person to see if that means it does anything for them, and he obviously agreed to it. And then the after effects is that he didn't have body communication with his left and right, because that the fleshy material keeping your brain hemispheres together has a job, has a purpose. And so that kind of plays into our beliefs as well as emotions when it comes to those kind of things. And I'm sure Austin has maybe some things to talk on with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, are we going to do an episode on energy work, something like that?
Beliefs, that makes sense too.
Totally.
So, not to belabor it, but yeah, I mean, as far as the whole brain reality of your physical brain and how it actually opens up an energetic channel to your heart. I actually like how Tony Robbins he has an exercise where he'll talk about, like, let's say you've got this decision, this really difficult decision you've been hesitating to make, and you don't know what to do. And then he actually leads you through like this, where you put your hand on your heart and you close your eyes and you actually start feeling your heartbeat. And he leads you through, there's music in the background. He says, just think about your heart, this faithful heart who's always been there, beating so many times a second, so many times a week. It's never failed you. All the stuff you've put through it, all the stuff you've done to it, all the stuff that it's been with you. And his whole point is to get your brain thinking about your heart. And what happens is that as you actually connect to your heart physically and mentally, the brain waves and the heart waves begin to match. And as opposed to, like, typically your brain waves are one thing, EKG and EEG, yeah, and that's two. That the waves are different, but when you do this exercise, they get in sync. And then he'll do the exercise and he'll say, now, what decision do you believe you should make? And it's your brain's able to get in touch with what your heart knows. And then you get into beliefs and emotions and all that. And there's a reason that works. But yeah, that getting your brain in sync with itself, and then getting your brain and opening up the line of communication with your heart. Brain Gym, I believe it is, came up with something known as the whole brain posture. And that is, it uses, and Psych-K uses that, and you crossed your arms at the wrist and your feet at the ankles, and there's, in many ways, there's not a right or wrong way to cross, but if you want improved performance, you can actually muscle test, which arm should be on top, which leg should be on top, type of thing. And then one of the things I'll do if I'm stressed or I'm not sure what to do, or like I'll just sit in whole brain posture at a restaurant, anywhere, like freaking cross my ankles, cross my wrists, and just kind of sit there and talk. And what you're doing is actually opening up the energetic channel between your heart and your brain. And you're crossing, as you said, Jen, you're actually crossing the midline too, where your right side is crossing with your left. So it's not only connecting your left and right brain, but it's also then connecting your brain with your heart. So there's a little bit there for you.
Can we go back? Who was the video from about the heart and the brain? What was her name?
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
He does an exercise on it. This heart exercise. I love it. I've used it a few times.
I might have to go find them.
Really, really good.
Thanks for
Right
sharing.
Well, we're going kind of long here, so maybe it's time to go around the circle and maybe just get in something that you can at least, I don't know, direct somebody towards something, or give your full opinion. I don't care. Go for it.
I think at the end of the day, the more you can know yourself and your goals, the farther you're going to take yourself. We spent a lot of time today sharing what we've experienced and what we're studying and what works for us. Take it and use it to the best of your abilities, but also be true to yourself and who you are, and connect something that's meaningful for you.
Yeah, I know it sounds like there is a crap ton of stuff to do, and I was feeling a little bit hopeless today. I was just like, oh my word, there's so much stuff to do, and where do you start and whatever. But just pick one thing and just do one thing and start from there. I mean, one step at a time. Don't try to run before you can walk, or even stand. And so I know there are some things that I'm planning on incorporating into my routine, and I'm not planning on incorporating everything right away. So, but yeah. And actually, in the same vein, what would you suggest? One thing, Matt. What's the easiest thing that you would suggest? Hey, if you do something, do this.
In the modern society we live in now, get a blue blocker for your phone, whether it's an app that is going to filter out the blue light, or for your laptop. You can, I know Windows for sure has a mode that you can go and put it into evening mode, and it just takes the blue light out. It's kind of like a red filter, so everything has a reddish tint to it. Mm-hmm. But having that, getting rid of that light frequency, for thousands of years, we were guided by the rising and the setting of the sun. That was our alarm clock in the morning. Now we have, I guess, unless when you were one of those rich people that had candles. Now, we have lights all around us all the time, especially, we carry them in our pockets, and that light, it can just destroy your sleep at night. Like I think one of the tools I invested it in is called an Oura Ring, and it's got sensors on this side, and it just basically, it can track my brain waves at night. It can tell me how much REM sleep I'm getting, how much deep sleep I'm getting. It tracks how long I've slept, where there were, it tracks my heart rate and all that kind of heart rate variability, all sorts of things, so that in the morning it can tell me what my sleep was like and what my readiness for that day is like and what kind of activity it recommends. And while that might sound like a bit overboard, the big takeaway is I can tell, like, okay, I did this stuff last night and my deep sleep, the deep restorative sleep, suffered because of it. Okay, maybe I shouldn't drink alcohol before bedtime. Maybe I shouldn't be watching a television show to fall asleep to. Or maybe my REM sleep suffered. So maybe it was, eating too close to bedtime. I don't know, whatever. And the cool thing is you can see trends develop over time with something, a tool like this. I liked it because it was a multitasking tool. I lost my wedding ring a long time ago in a river on a float, and so I needed another one, and this kind of fit the bill. So cheap, easy app that blocks the blue light on your phone after a certain time that you set would be an easy one, because I talked about, to open up, major in the majors, minor in the minors. If you're not getting the quality sleep, it affects your whole life. So if you're not getting the quantity or the quality, that's a big deal. And then the other half of that coin is what are you eating and when are you eating? I have probably mentioned somewhere, how much I changed my diet almost. So today it's May right now, almost Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend last year, I changed my diet. I went to intermittent fasting. I went to the keto diet. I've stuck with intermittent fasting. I've done seasonal keto, but I had knee pain for 14 years. I went to so many doctors for this. Did physical therapy, had insoles, all sorts of things. I was throwing suggestions at the doctors and they're like, "Oh, it's a good idea. You should try that." Changing what I ate and when I ate it, I haven't had knee pain in the last year. And my activity has been able to soar. I went from having to ice my knees if I went up and down the stairs a couple extra times in a day to running stadium steps with my kids all summer. And I'm looking forward to it again this summer. I went from, if I was coaching, to hurt, to bend down, to demonstrate something, to, I'm officiating games where I'm in a crouching stance for like 2 hours now. So changing what I ate and when I ate it transformed my life. So majoring in the majors, those two are huge. What you eat and how you sleep.
That's good. I'd say for me, how many people listening to this podcast have just gotten used to some sort of pain, some sort of thing. And at some point you have to give yourself permission to kind of re-engage a desire for a better way of life. And I've talked a lot. I keep kind of hitting on awareness, but also intent, right? Because I just had this pain my whole life. Well, do you want to keep it? It's because the guy in the white lab coat told you it was, you're going to have it your whole life. Matt, knee pain for 14 years. Is that true? It's not true. Your body knows how to build a healthy body. It did it once before, and they're finding, even down to like, there's ways to regrow teeth now. Like, oh no, you'll get one set of teeth. That's actually not true.
Cool.
And the activation of the things that your body knows how to do. So if you've kind of gotten used to this thing, whatever it is, I'm used to the neck pain, I'm used to the knee pain, I'm used to the whatever, reignite your intention, and see if you can't actually go address it. I think biohacking in this discussion has a lot of potential solutions that you may not have even known existed. So,
totally. That's kind of along the lines of what I was going to mention. Is just as I was doing some of this research and I watched a video of a guy who was doing some experiments on himself in a very empowered way, and it made me think how the people who follow this way of thinking or the desire to improve, other than what I mentioned earlier, the orthorexia, going overboard, other than that, they're people who are not thinking of themselves in a victim sort of way, not being subject to the way that their body is currently, and it's a very empowering thing, and I think it's a pretty cool outlook. It's a hopeful outlook, which is something that we're very into with Epic. And then also to go off of what Matt was talking about earlier with the changing up your habitual ways of doing things, like switching hands for brushing teeth and stuff like that. A quote from the guy who created Bulletproof Coffee, the brand, It says, put yourself in uncomfortable situations to lower your expectations and raise your tolerance. I guess, yeah, I think I'll put more context in my article, but the concept that we get too comfortable and we can't handle stuff in general. So, but yeah, that was basically, he was saying the same thing as what Matt was saying, essentially, was change up the way that your brain is handling information, and it has a powerful impact on all sorts of things, I guess. But yeah, I don't personally, I don't feel like I've done much of anything with biohacking to this point, other than trying to get decent sleep. But I don't even have the thing on my phone. I've thought about it a couple times, but the light blocker. So I guess I'll do that today.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the idea of like, people will say, well, I'm not growing. Well, give yourself a reason to grow. Like if you're spiritually not growing, well, if you're physically and mentally not growing, there's a reason. It's because you put yourself in a box and you're comfortable in the box. So there's no reason to grow, because you're already in the place that you feel like you need to be. But if you give yourself a place to aim for, then, and it's not where you're at, then you have to change to get there. You have to grow to get there.
Totally. And it's nice to not wait for a situation where you're forced into it in a painful way.
No doubt.
And then when those do show up, if you're used to it, you can handle it that much better.
That's true.
Right. I guess the only thing I would finish up with is to say that I wrote an article about biohacking to start off the new year, and I will link to that in my article for this week. Another thing is I'll get together with Tina and get some links to products that I've found to be ideal and well researched and well rated and reviewed. Some things are like this guy here, colostrum. People are like, you take colostrum? And
what's colostrum?
Colostrum is like the first mother's milk.
I knew that, but I want to make sure.
Right?
Where do you get that from, Matt? Like, what's
the interwebs?
So one, it's bovine.
Okay.
So it's not like I hit up the ladies on the street. But I was taking it for growth hormone, because I was like, for the knee stuff, I was like, I need to find every way that I can to maximize growth hormone. So I designed my diet for more growth hormone. I designed my workouts for more growth hormone. Intermittent fasting was for more growth hormone. And voila, gave my joints the growth hormone they needed, and they fixed themselves after over a decade. So, but yeah, so I'll have the article there that talks about supplements that are super cool and practices that are free to do, because biohacking doesn't have to be expensive. It can be a free app or a free exercise that you do, or it can be, taking things, diving into those minors and finding the things that will make a little bit of difference for an area that you really care about, and get those links to Tina so we can get those products on the page.
What page?
Well, it'd be a page at theepoch.org, and it'd be the one where you can find all the extras that Tina puts into the podcast episode.
Yeah.
She's so fabulous.
She is. She's the best.
Fabulous.
Oh, that reminds me. We have a bunch of stuff over on our Patreon page. There's all sorts of behind the scenes and outtakes and Matt and Austin's shenanigans and juvenile jokes, and if you like that,
or kind of dad jokes.
Or dad jokes.
There's dad jokes.
There's a lot more juvenile ones than dad ones, but
that's Matt.
Who's the one that has that catchphrase the most? What's your catchphrase?
That's what she said?
Oh, no, there's another one. Less G. And when you said keep it G, I was like, I don't think our episodes have ever been G. And let's just say that the outtakes are not either. Okay. But there are some funny ones. So if you want to check it out, it's over there on patreon.com/theepoch maybe? Well, anyway, we'll put it in the episode.
Fabulous.
All right. So treat yourself to those outtakes and some new biohacking techniques and and supplements. And this has been a primer. This isn't the whole conversation, just something to get you going on. So thanks for joining us this week, and we'll just catch you again next week.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye-bye.